Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Luchike Styles. Thank you for stopping right here on my space today. And in today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you all a detailed process on how to sew this turtleneck bustier gown. So it has a yoke as well, and I also use the same net as the sleeve. So if you watch closely, the one at the sides is quite different from the one at the middle. This is because I made a separate skirt, a separate pencil skirt using the same net I use on the neckline, and it can be worn differently and it can be worn at the same time, and this is just for extra beauty. So I'll be giving you all the detailed process on how I went about all of this, and if this sounds like something I'm really interested in learning how to do, please continue watching and don't also forget to subscribe to my channel. Without much ado, let's just get started with what we have for today. So basically, this is the second part of this tutorial, which is the sewing part. In the first part of the tutorial, which I already uploaded on the channel, I made a detailed process on how to draft this bustier gown, how to create your waist dart, your side dart, and how to cut as well. So I'll be linking the tutorial in the comment section so that you just have to watch it so you understand everything which I'll be doing right here. So it's actually a detailed process and there's nothing to regret about that. So after drafting and cutting out on my pattern paper, I went ahead now to cut out on my fabric, as you can see right here. So I used a 100% African print fabric which has multicolors, and I also use an orange color as my combination for the neckline on the yoke. As you can see right here on my yoke, I have these nets as my yoke, and I added stitching or joining allowance all around. On the yoke, you see underneath I added this half of an inch. So for the back dress, I also added half of an inch at the top and also at the half length for joining allowance. The same thing I did for the yoke. Now here is the front part of my dress. So you can see that right here on the center front and at the side front, I added half of an inch all around this. This is for joining allowance. I did the same thing for my center front as well, but I didn't add to the side of my side front because I already did that when I was drafting. And I cut out as well on my hairstay and also my lining piece. So I'll be ironing this my hairstay to my lining piece and also to my main fabric. So now I'm going to unpin all of this because while you are cutting your fabric, don't forget that you are cutting on fold, right? So this is for my yoke, for the front yoke. So I cut out two pieces, which is totally optional. You can cut out just one piece, but I just cut out two pieces as requested by my client. So now here is the center front. As you can see, I opened this up, and for my side front, I'll also remove these pins and also place it properly so that you all see what it looks like. So when I've separated all of these pieces, I'll just start now by joining all of them together. So what I'm going to do first is to take my yoke aside by the time I want to start joining all of these pieces. And please don't also forget to notch your under bust, also your bust point. So right here I actually forgot to notch my bust point, and you can see I went ahead to place my pattern paper on this so that I can chalk out my bust point before I go ahead to use my scissors to notch. So already I've gone ahead to notch my under bust and my bust point for my side fronts. Okay, so this is basically all you have to do. So the next I'll do now is to actually show you all the skirt part of this my gown. So I've cut out the front and the back part of this my skirt, and I also cut out my lining piece. So remember, you are cutting on fold, and don't also forget to take in your dart. Okay, so if you watch closely, I have my lining shorter than my actual fabric. This is because by the time I sew, I would want my fabric to be inside. Okay, so I want it to be inside, which I'll also be showing you all the outcome of the explanation I'm trying to give right now. Okay, so that is basically it, but you can still make your lining of the same length with your skirt, but mine I reduced it by just 2 inches. So now go ahead now and iron my hairstay to my fabrics for the upper part of my dress and also on my lining piece. So as you can see right here, I've done it, and this hairstay you iron to your fabric is for more stability or strength to your dress. Okay, so now I'll start joining all of this my piece, fabric to fabric and lining to lining. So firstly, I'll bring my side front and my center front and start joining them on the sides. So you can see me right now, I'm pinning this, and after pinning I went ahead to mark half of an inch from my half length all the way up to this top part where this joint stopped. So I'll do the same thing for my lining piece. As you can see right here, I joined, I pinned, and I joined, and I went ahead also to iron my seam open. So it's actually very simple to do, and without even padding this my particular dress, you can see how cupped is already looking. This is because of our side darts and the whole process involved in the drafting. Okay, so now I'm done. I'm going to start by fixing my yoke to this my dress. So this my yoke, on that pointy part, which is very pointy, I'm going to ensure that I pin it together with the deep part on my dress. So if you actually watch the first part of this tutorial, I believe you really understand what I'm doing right here. So exactly on that point at the middle, you're going to pin these two together, the pointy part on your yoke and the deepest part on your body, on your dress. Okay, so I'll pin these two together this way, and the remaining parts I'm going to place them on top of my dress, just this way. So I'm doing this on the right side of my fabric and not on the wrong side. So my yoke is on top of the right side of my fabric, as you can see clearly right here. Okay, so you have to pin the middle first so that it can be equal at both sides. All right, so after pinning at both sides, I will still turn it over to the wrong side so that you all can see what I have. So please don't forget that you are supposed to iron your seam open. Okay, so right now after pinning, if you stitch, this is what you're going to have, but because we want a very neat finishing, we need to add our lining to this. Okay, so right now I'm going to have my yoke in between my fabric and my lining, and I'm going to make sure that I place the middle part of my lining piece, that's the top part, exactly on the middle of this my dress, just this way. And I'm also going to pin the same way I pin my yoke to my fabric. So right now after doing this, you're going to have your yoke in between your lining and also your fabric. So make sure you arrange this very well.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2.
So just mark half of an inch at the top part and stitch. Now make sure that you don't stitch the sides of your yoke to your fabric. Okay, so I'll arrange the sides because I'm going to stitch the sides using 1/4 of an inch and also stitch the base using just 1/4 of an inch as well. So now for the back, I'm going to also repeat the same thing, and please, while cutting on your fabric for the back, don't forget to notch the dart lines, because when you remove your pattern paper from your fabric, you're going to be slightly confused, but with the help of the notch of your darts, you'll be able to identify the lower part and the upper part. So right here, that was just all I did, and I went ahead now to separate my pattern paper from my yoke. Now I'm going to place my my yoke on the right side at the top part of my back dress, just this way, as you can see. So make sure it aligns from your zipper area all the way to the armhole, just the same way mine did. And I'll go ahead now and pin. So if you watch closely, you see that my yoke is resting on the right side of my fabric. So just the same way I did for my front dress, I'm going to repeat the same thing for my back dress. I'll place my lining piece right sides facing my fabric this way, and I'll have my yoke in between my fabric and my lining, and I'm just going to stitch the top at that top part using just half of an inch, and the sides I'll stitch using 1/4 of an inch, and also stitch the base using just 1/4 of an inch. So all this I'll do. And now for the skirt part, I'll also repeat the same thing. I'm going to firstly go ahead to stitch them individually or separately, then before I'll go ahead and assemble all of these pieces together. So you just have to bring the right side of your fabric and make sure that it's on the same side with your lining piece. And I'm going to stitch the base first by dragging down my lining to meet the length of my fabric. So by the time I drag this down, I'll have half of an inch. Sorry, I'll stitch by half of an inch this way. Then I'll take it up and stitch all of the sides with just 1/4 of an inch. Remember, I added 1/4 of an inch for turning up allowance. Then you leave just 3 inches from where you turn out your skirt from. So this is also for the front part, and I'm also going to repeat the same thing. So now guys, I went ahead to do just what I've told you right here, and you can see without padding I actually have my bustier fully cupped. I did all of this and I didn't stitch the armhole because that was where I brought out all this my fabric from. And for the back part I also repeated the same thing, as you can see right here. So I didn't stitch the armhole. The armhole is entirely open. That is where I turned it out from. So the next thing left for me now is to actually stitch my dart for this my back dress, as you can see. So I'm going to stitch my darts this way because of the notches I have is still visible, right? So now after stitching in my darts, I'll go ahead now and join my front part of my dress to the back part. So firstly I have to bring the two shoulders together and make sure that they align just the same way I'm doing right here. Make sure they are right sides facing each other. So when you arrange the shoulder and they align properly, you go ahead and arrange the sides and also pin as well. So I'll also do for the other side of my back dress, and when I'm done I'll go ahead now and mark my stitching allowance of 1.5 inches all the way to the base. Now for my skirt part, I've done what exactly the thing I asked you all to do, and I left about 3 inches where I turned this out from, and I'll go ahead now and stitch it down, all right, just this way, and take it in and stitch it down this way, and I have a neat finishing. I'll also go ahead and stitch down my darts. So with the help of the notches I'm able to identify my darts. So I'm going to stitch down my darts just this way. By the time I do that, I'll go ahead now and join the front part of my skirt to the back parts. I'll join it at the sides first, all right, after taking in my dart as well for the back part of my skirt, as you can see I'm doing right now. Okay, so you can see that everything aligns properly, and you can see that my fabric is inside. Okay, so that was exactly how I wanted it to be. So I'm going to stitch the both sides using 1.5 inches, which is my sewing allowance. And as you can see right here, I've done this and you can see what I have. So when you are done stitching the upper part and the lower part, you just have to join them at the waist area using just half of an inch, and you can see my dart is taking and every other thing. And when you are joining your upper part and the lower part of your gown, make sure that your seam is open, all right? So right now I'm going to just bring my gown together on the zipper area. So this is because I'm trying to measure out the length of my gown to ensure that I still have the correct inches in length. So when I did this, I had exactly 37 inches, which is what I wanted. Okay, so remember I'm here to fix my turtleneck. By the time I do that, to correspond to exactly 37 inches. So right now I brought a piece of paper where I'll be drafting my turtleneck. So I drew this straight line because that part wasn't straight, so it will be my guide. So I'll just simply have to fold it in so that you know that is of no use to me. So now for this other line, I just drew a straight line right here, which is the line I'll be working with to get my turtleneck. Okay, so on this straight line now I'll have to mark my neck circumference on it. So I have to do this by bringing the front and the back part of my shoulder just this way. I'll bring them together, more like folding my dress into two this way. So I'll measure now from the shoulder to the middle of my front neckline, and right there you can see that I have 4.5 inches. So now on this straight line which I marked right here, I just went ahead to mark my 4.5 inches. Now from my shoulder to my zipper area, I'm going to measure what I have again. That's from the shoulder to the back, because our zipper is fixed to the back. So I had 4.5 inches, so I'll go ahead as well and also mark 4.5 inches. So by the time I do this now, I'm just simply going to determine the height of my band. But before that, from this line now, which I just labeled my front and my back, I'll go up by just half of an inch from the other edge, which is for my front neckline. So I'll connect this half of an inch to this 4.5 inches where my front neckline stopped, just this way. So the next is to determine the height of my band. So I'll be adding both the stitching allowance and everything to this my band. So thereby I'm marking just half of an inch. So I'll use half of an inch to stitch at both sides, and by then I'll be left with just 1 inch. Okay, so now I'm marking 2 inches following the shape and the way which I marked all of these lines. All right, so after that, now I'll go ahead now and connect all of these dots into a straight. Okay, it's not really straight actually, you just have to use your curve rule and just follow the shape and the way they are going. As you can see right here, I'm actually turning. I'm trying to make sure that my curve rule actually blends in perfectly with the dots I've made right here so far, because it's not straight. All right, so now I connected it this way. So now after this, I'm simply going to add half of an inch for sewing allowance, because we're actually going to stitch this down after fixing it to our neckline. So you understand everything I'm doing, because I'll take you all through even to my sewing machine. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do now is to make arrows of the parts where my my band will be sitting on. So the parts with the double arrows will be sitting directly on my neckline, and the upper parts with one arrow will just be at the top part of my neckline. Okay, so by the time I'll cut out on my net as well, I'll also make 2 notches to indicate that the part that has these 2 notches will be the part that will be sitting on my neckline. Okay, so I hope you're not confused at all. So right now I'll get my net and I'm going to fold it into 4. So I'll make my first fold, arrange this properly and make my first fold just this way. So after making my first fold, I'll go ahead and make my second fold. So this is for me to be able to cut out 2 pieces of this my band. Okay, so if you fold like this and cut, you're going to actually have 2 pieces of your band. Okay, so when I place this, it wasn't really up to that. I had to add more inches to my folded fabric, and I folded this twice. Then when I got my desired length of my band, I went ahead to cut. So when I folded this, I realized that this my net was like stretchy, like so stretchy but not extremely stretchy. So meaning that I have to reduce some inches from this my neck, because when you're working with a stretchy fabric, you really don't work with the exact measurement you have. So I reduced it by just 1 inch because of the nature of my fabric, which is this net that is a bit stretchy. So now I cut off 1 inch from all the measurements I've taken right here. So I'll pin this my pattern paper to this my net, and I'll go ahead and cut exactly the way it's looking. So please, if you're not working with a stretchy fabric, you don't have to bother cutting off anything. You will see that this will automatically fit in with my neckline because it is stretchy. That was why I removed just 1 inch from the length of my neckline. Okay, so I made the first notch and I'll make the second notch, and this is for the part that will be sitting on my neckline. So now after this, I separated my pattern paper from my band, and this is what I have. You can see I have 2 pieces right here. So now I'll get my dress on the neckline area. I'm going to notch the middle after folding this my gown into 2 just this way. So now I'm going to also get the middle of this my band, and I'm going to start pinning it on my neckline just this way. So I'll pin it all around. So after pinning this all around on my neckline, I'll go ahead and stitch using just half of an inch. All right, so you will see the magic right here, because this my neckline will automatically fit in with my band. This is because it is stretchy, just like I said earlier. So if I hadn't removed 1 inch from this my band, it would have been too loose on the neckline area, which I wouldn't want to happen. Okay, so if you're working with a stretchy fabric, this is actually something that you should do. Even if your fabric stretches a lot more than mine, you can even go ahead to remove like 2 inches. Okay, so after making my first stitch all the way to the end, you can see that everything aligned. There is no space or whatever remaining. So now I went ahead to mark my zipper allowance of 1 inch. So I just used my scissors to notch because my chalk wasn't close to me. Now I went ahead now to start placing my zipper from that point. So I place this that way on exactly that 1 inch where I notched. Now I'll start pinning all the way to the very close to the end of my zipper. Okay, so I pin for one side and I'm also going to pin for the other side. As you can see, I'm measuring my zipper allowance, which is 1 inch, and I'll also pin my zipper just that way, the same way I did for the other side. I believe you all know how to fix our zipper, right? So I'll also carefully pin this because I love working with pins. It gives me a very neat work. Okay, so I don't end up losing and stitching and losing and stitching. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and also pin this. So right now, after pinning, this is what I have. It's already having a very good and nice shape. So just the way I've pinned, I'm going to stitch. Okay, so right now I've gone ahead to stitch my zipper to my dress, and this is what I have. You can see how neat this is looking already. So for the slits, which I have, I left about 6 inches for the slits. I didn't close up the entire back, open back zip on the ends. Okay, so now for this, my second band, I'm going to bring it this way, open up my zipper just like I've done, and now start pinning this on the upper neckline of this my band. So you are going to make sure that your zipper is open and is on top of your yoke, just this way. So I'm going to pin the upper neckline, as you can see, and I'll pin this all around. Then I'll go ahead and stitch. So after pinning, I'll just take you out to my sewing machine so you see how to stitch this and also use it to cover up your zipper to have a neat finishing. So now from that top part on my zipper, like that part on my band this way, I'm going to stitch. You can see after making the top stitch, I'm going to stitch this way and leave just half of an inch where I'll be folding in the remaining rough edges of my band to be covered properly. Okay, so now after making that first stitch, I will now stitch the top part of this my band. I hope you can see everything I'm doing. So you just use half of an inch. So by the time I'm done, I'll be left with 1 inch as the height of my band. Okay,
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
so I got to the other side of my zipper and I'm also going to repeat the same thing. So you just stitch it, but make sure you leave about half of an inch, okay, to fold in. All right, so now I'll cut off the excess zipper I have at the top part. So I'll now try to flip this to the right side. I'll turn it inside out this way. So if it's a bit difficult, you just have to trim off these excesses and now turn it this way, and now we have a very neat covering and neckline, as you can see right here. So I'll flip this way and now folding. Okay, when I zip, this is what I had. I'm yet to fold in the remaining rough edges. Okay, so I'll go ahead and fold this in. That rough part that is left, I'll fold it in because this is a net. Okay, so I'll go ahead and fold this in and now stitch using the half of an inch which I left for the stitching. So this is what I did, and by the time I finished stitching, I had a very neat finishing on my neckline and on my band as well, and I was totally in love with the outcome, and I'm super excited that my clients really loved the outfit. So by the time I was done stitching my neckline, I also went ahead to cut out a long sleeve with this same net as the sleeve which you saw at the beginning of this tutorial, and which I'll also be showing you at the ending part of this tutorial. So for the exaggerated sleeve, if you really want me to share a tutorial on how I went about this, the proper standing of that my exaggerated sleeve, please, I would like you all to just indicate in the comment section. Okay, So guys, that is all for this tutorial. And for the skirt part is also a separate skirt which can be worn to this dress to give it extra beauty, and you just add a belt to the waist part. So that is how simple it is, and I did all of that. Okay, and you can see now I'm done stitching for my band. I went ahead now to stitch the top part, but this top part now is totally optional if you wish to do that. Okay, so guys, I did all of that, and that was the end of how I made this bustier gown without padding it, but I have it fully cupped. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate. Hope you subscribe to my channel, and I hope you found this tutorial helpful. I'll see you all in my next one. Thank you always. Bye.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up.